I am going to give you a tour through one of our wikis that we've developed that has quite a few interesting features in it that I think you might enjoy. What I'm going to do first, and actually we're here at MediaWiki.org. So we have, in the last couple of years, being MITRE, open sourced 12 extensions, and we maintained 14 because we actually took over 2 extensions that had been abandoned by their original developers that we found very useful for our work, and we had a vested interest in them continuing to be developed. So we took over the semantic title extension, which I know several people have mentioned that they use, and we find it extremely useful, and I'll show you an example of it in the wiki that I'm going to demo. And the JS breadcrumbs extension, which had also been, the original developer was no longer interested in maintaining it, so we decided, because we wanted to add some additional features to it, we offered to take it over that. The other extensions that I have here are all things that we developed at MITRE. We have, since mid-2006, we started working on MediaWiki, and then at some point after that, we started developing our own extensions. We've developed actually 50 extensions over time, and of those 50, about 40 of them are still being used. The ones that we felt were of most interest to the community, 12, we have open sourced. Of those extensions, I maintain the bulk of them. I actually did initial versions, actually started the development or developed a previous version of all of them. Have 2 fabulous developers on my team, brothers, Kevin G. and Jason G. Kevin is responsible for Hierarchy Builder and has been doing some great things with that. And Jason has developed, I completely rewrote Wiki, which is a network graphing tool. And then he wrote it in an extensible manner. He's open sourced 2 of the extensions, Wiki Semantic Title and Wiki Title Icon, and he has 3 or 4 more others that he has yet to open source. And then we have other extensions that we hope to have the time and the funding to open source in the future. So we have a suite of these, and as I walk through the wiki that I'm going to demo, which is called Make, it's a malware attribute enumeration and characterization wiki. And it is a public wiki, so I'll show you the URL, and you can follow along if you want to. We don't have too many wikis outside the firewall, and I'm very fortunate that this one is, and that it has some really novel characteristics to it. I'm quite proud of it. I developed it. So if you go to collaborate.mitre.org/MAEC, if you want to follow along, you will see this wiki. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Is that going to full screen? Okay. So that is our malware attribute enumeration and characterization wiki. And this was developed, I'll read a little quote from one of the folks who had actually asked us to develop this. The Make Semantic MediaWiki has provided us with a wonderful and intuitive interface for adding and managing the hierarchical data associated with malware behavior that we need to capture for our project. Besides this, it's allowed us to crowdsource the addition of some of this data. This is crucial to our product as we are working in a very large domain, making it very difficult to capture all of this data ourselves. You're making, thank you. He's making the font bigger. Thank you. Can everybody read it now? Cool. Okay, so, and I think I've mentioned this a few times. I know I've mentioned it in previous conferences as well. So when we have an engagement, when we have folks that come to us and want to have us develop a wiki for them, we don't just stand up a wiki and say, okay, go add some pages and walk away. We're in the business of developing what we call collaborative analytics applications. And the first thing we do is go through a modeling activity with the users and say, okay, what are the key, it's really like an object-oriented decomposition. What are the key concepts that you're going to use? What are the properties of those? And so in the example of this wiki, you can see on the sidebar that the key concepts here for describing the attributes of malware are, what was that? Was that me? Boom. Are capabilities, sub-capabilities, behaviors, behavior instances, attributes, attribute values, structural features, relationships, vocabulary, enumerations. And they're listed there down on the sidebar. And notice that we make quite a bit of use of iconography so that as users navigate the wiki, they can see visually what it is they're looking for and what its relationship is to other things. So the title icon extension that I talked about is used in conjunction with this iconography, and you'll see this as we walk through some of these pages. So this is a wiki that's meant to create an ontology, to create a set of terminology for describing, for characterizing malware. And so, you'll see here that these components of it are ways of describing the different facets of the malware. So I'm going to jump down here to behaviors. And so we'll see right away the iconography here. So this the title icon extension allows us to, using a property, to assign an icon for a page, and we use that same iconography through the site. So we're looking here, we know that this is about behaviors because that's the behavior icon. And then we have a hierarchy here that's built using the Hierarchy Builder extension. And you'll see that Hierarchy Builder is used both to render hierarchies as well as to edit them, and as well as to display in a form a hierarchy that you can then select aspects using 3-state checkboxes to select parts of a hierarchy that apply to something. So this hierarchy is used, these hierarchies are used throughout the site. So here we see a hierarchy that displays behaviors in the context of the capabilities and sub-capabilities that they apply to. Now, one thing that I didn't mention before is that this wiki is built using a combination of cargo and some semantic media wiki. Most of the representation of these elements is done using cargo. So there's a template for capabilities which has cargo data associated, one for sub-capabilities. The only thing that we're continuing to use semantic media wiki for are those aspects of our other suite of extensions that have not yet, because we haven't had time or funding, to be converted to allow cargo instead of semantic media wiki. So title icon is, the way you define a title icon for a page is by setting a property on that page to say what the title icon is. At some point, we will hopefully update title icon so that you can also set up a cargo field on that page. And that can be used to set the title icon. Currently, that functionality is not there, so you'll see later on, I'll show you the properties that are assigned to these pages. Hierarchy Builder is still built around semantic media wiki, but we hope to eventually also support cargo in that. So this wiki is a really good example, I think, of how cargo and semantic media wiki can coexist beautifully, and each being used for where it makes sense. So these are the behaviors. This is the page that shows the hierarchy of the behaviors and where they fit with capabilities and sub-capabilities. I'm going to show that there are also hierarchies associated, I don't think I clicked, there we go, with attributes. So we have attributes defined in the system and attribute values. So this is everything in this, because it's used for ontology development, is what's called a vocabulary enumeration. So every page is associated with a vocabulary enumeration, and you'll see those icons as well. So those are attributes, and here are the attribute values. So these are all the basic building blocks. You can see there's hundreds of pages here defining the different pieces that go to describing a piece of malware. So if we, and I'm going to go and look at one of these behaviors. I'm going to, but because I just happen to know that behavior 15 is interesting, I'm going to go to behavior 15. Now, this is a great example here of semantic title. I happen to know the secret sauce that behavior 15 is a page that's interesting. It is called Detect VM Environment. Okay? So even though the page in the wiki is just assigned a number, so we can create a page just by hitting a button and say, create a new behavior, we then, using the form, will fill that in. So I'm going to log in here so I can show you the editing. And this is actually using another, not now. This is using another one of the extensions that I wrote, Pluggable Auth, and which is working in conjunction with SAML. On the MW Stake Wiki, we're also using Pluggable Auth, and in that one it's using integrating with OpenID Connect and uses that as an interface to Google. So let me go back to behavior 15. So this is a page about a behavior. And if we were to edit that behavior, you can see that we can set its name, description, what vocabulary enumeration. Remember, I said everything here is defined by these vocabulary enumerations. And then here's the hierarchy builder using these 3-state checkboxes that this same behavior hierarchy that I showed you on the behaviors page, we can now say, well, in this case, it's what attributes. So that was the attribute page. What attributes are associated with, and we can go down to the level of selecting individual attributes, or we can actually select them using the higher level categories that group them together. And this allows, notice the 3-state checkboxes as we check things. So associated attributes and capabilities and sub-capabilities for these. Here with references, I think that would be a great place that we could go and switch to the spreadsheet editing that Jörn was talking about the other day. So here we've got a multi-instance template where, now does it support dates? Not yet. Once it supports dates, we'll be able to have date and then a drop-down for the malware family and the URL. So this shows how you can edit a behavior and how we extended in Hierarchy Builder, we extended, created a new input type for the hierarchy. So that's an extension that's in that Hierarchy Builder extension. Again, here is the iconography, the title icon used in the top left, so we know we're looking at a behavior page. We try and carry the iconography throughout. Here's this is a associated sub-capability. Here are some attributes that are associated with this page. And then through looking through the linkages of the wiki, we can also see different types of things. In this case, these are behavior instances, which we can see through the iconography, are Microsoft Windows platforms, because it's got that little Windows logo. So again, lots of use of iconography to help people visually navigate the site. Down here on the bottom of the sidebar, you'll see last 10 pages viewed. That's provided by the JS Breadcrumbs extension. The initial implementation of JS Breadcrumbs had the breadcrumbs always as a trail along the top of the page, but we, on the vector skin, like to be able to make use of the bottom of the sidebar there. So you can quickly go back to, and it's configurable how many pages it remembers. So that gives you a nice trail of your navigation as you click through the wiki. The other thing that I want to show you on this page is that on every one of these instance pages, a page that's of one of these classes, I've got on the sidebar a graph this page, and this will use our Wiki network graphing extension, and it finds all of the incoming and outgoing links starting from the page of the origin, and then we'll also look for second order linkages. So I'm linked to a page, and then what other pages are those? And so it will go in automatically. And notice that as it's going to start populating the names of the pages and the iconography of the pages. And this is another great place where that iconography helps you very easily look and visually figure out what's going on in the graph. So this will give you a visual view of how all the information fits together in a wiki. And this is something that can be really helpful once your corpus of information in a wiki is built up. It becomes this living database of information, and you can start slicing it and dicing it in different ways and seeing it from different aspects. And this is one way to sort of sit at that 30,000-foot view and look down and say, this is, oh, look, this is connected to this over here. And what you can also do then is, let me take a node so now we've started from a node, we found all the nodes that have incoming and outgoing links to that nodes, and then for all of those nodes that are at that first order connection, we found second order linkages between them. So we can now then take one of those outlying nodes and say, okay, I'm going to elaborate then. Let's find what it's linked to. And you can start walking your graph and again start discovering things about, oh, look, we've got this here that's a hub that lots of things are connected to. And it helps you to better visualize your information. So that's Wiki, and it's Wiki with the Wiki title icon extension to Wiki, which adds this iconography, and then the Wiki semantic title extension, which takes the initial behavior :15 and turns it into detect VM environment. Okay, and as I said, there's a couple additional Wiki extensions that Jason has written that help as well. Okay, so now if I go back over to behavior instances, and I can actually click on this and say I want to visit that page, go back to behavior 15. So a behavior is some generic behavior that can occur in malware. But a behavior instance then is that behavior exhibited by a particular actual exploit by somebody on a particular platform. So there are three behavior instances, this little gold icon and annotated with the platform. There are actual three instances of this detect VM environment behavior. And so we're going to go and explore those in a minute. While I'm here, though, I talked before about how this is a combination of cargo and semantic media wiki. And what I want to do is show you three links.
The battery's loose in the back of in the actual box thing, and it just loses contact.
Oh, that's what happens? Okay.
The third time it happens, you will blow up.
I will blow up if okay, I'll try. I'm going to try not to move. Okay. So there are three interesting links here that I'm going to show you. Page information, page values, and browse properties. So first, page information. So page information is provided by MediaWiki, the core MediaWiki, and gives you information about the page you're looking at. And one of the things it provides you with is information about the page properties of that page. And you'll see here, display title is a page property, and that's actually what the semantic title extension uses to set the title of a page. So you can see detect VM environment is the display title of page behavior 15. And there's other interesting information you can see, the length of the page ID, who's edited it, and all of this information is provided by core MediaWiki. Now, the next tab, the next link I clicked on, was page information. And this is the cargo information for this page. And you'll see that the behavior page, this behavior page, actually has information entered in a number of different tables. So there are a number of templates associated with the page. So there's associations. Should I take it out of my pocket and just lay it over here? Don't touch it. Stay. So there are a number of associations associated with this page. It uses the behavior template to have some information associated with in the behaviors table. There's also a pages table that has additional information, including the title icon, which will eventually be used for once the title icon extension gets converted to support cargo. And then a references table. All of this information is the cargo-based information on that behavior page. And finally, the semantic media wiki information. So on that same page, there are semantic properties. There's a hierarchy page property, which is used. So there's a page called behavior hierarchy that stores in hierarchical list. So the way that you would create an unordered list using asterisks, that's the native format that a hierarchy is stored in for Hierarchy Builder. So there's a page you can go to that would have, star and then the top level of the hierarchy and the like. But that hierarchy is actually dynamically built on this particular wiki. And so every time you add a new behavior page, it will point to, using the semantic property, to a page where it will, using the semantic dependency extension, tell it, go recalculate that page, go refresh it, and it will dynamically rebuild the hierarchy that you saw when I clicked on the behaviors page. So that's a little bit mind-blowing, but so it also has a semantic property that points to the hierarchy parent. It has a name property. I don't think we need that anymore, actually, using the new semantic title version that's using page properties for name. It does have the title icon property because that is still used by the title icon extension. And then the other properties that are given in italics, those are the semantic extra special properties associated with the page. And that was what Yaron was saying now is also supported in Cargo. So you've got the creation date of the page, the modification date of the page, who created it, what the set of authors are, and then the number of page views. Is that provided by hit counters? The number of page views is provided by hit counters. So you can actually see how many times the page has been viewed. So, so that sort of gives you the gestalt of the description of all this different aspects of information that's stored on each page that then is queryable both through Cargo or Semantic Media Wiki to provide visualizations and give you more information. This wiki has as I said, hundreds of pages showing different aspects of this ontology, and the power isn't necessarily those individual pages, but the whole corpus, the whole collection of those pages. And then the additional information you can then discover by, for example, using Wiki to graph those relationships and say, see what's related and trace through what's related to what else. Okay, so now I want to go to behavior instances, and actually I'll do that coming from my favorite behavior, behavior 15. So behavior 15 has 3 behavior instances associated with it. And what I'm going to show you now is some work that I did with Lua, and Yaron had mentioned that recently some additional support for Lua was added to Cargo. So so a behavior supports attributes. So this behavior detect VM environment, there are 3 attributes associated with it: the technique, the applicable platform, and the targeted virtual machine for that behavior. So what we're saying here is that behavior has these attributes, but we don't know what the values of those attributes are because this is just a generic description of a behavior. But when we create an instance, down here at the bottom you can see you can add a new behavior instance. When you add a new behavior instance for a behavior, you're then going to want to fill in, for example, what the applicable platform is, and that's where you get over here these little icons that show the Windows logo on them, that these are instances of that behavior that occur on the Windows platform. But when we're editing a behavior instance, we don't want to have to say, oh, a behavior instance, this particular behavior instance, well, what attributes can it have? It actually inherits in the form from the behavior that it's associated with. So when you create a behavior instance, it's tied to a particular behavior. And of the attributes of that behavior, the ones that are in a particular vocabulary enumeration called common attributes are then eligible to be specified. So I will show you, if I click on guest process testing, notice it says inherited attributes, and the applicable platform has been inherited. And if I go here and I edit it with the form, you can see that it can inherit applicable platform and technique. In this particular case, no value was specified for technique, so we didn't see that on the page. But if we scroll down here, all of these Windows platforms were selected as being those that are applicable to this. And all of this also, I should mention, where we see these names showing up here for the attributes, the applicable platform and the technique, all of those things are actually using semantic title. So they are attribute 1, attribute 14, or attribute value 14. And it's semantic title and the support in semantic forms for mapping that allows them to show up here in the form with their human readable name. So, so all of this you can easily navigate through and set these values. And that's one of the hallmarks of how we develop these applications. It is possible on any of our wikis that we develop for somebody to just throw up a page and add some wiki text to it. But for the bulk of our users, we expect them to interact with the wiki through these forms and to fill out information. And that really helps us for making sure that all of the information stays semantically tagged, whether either using Semantic Media Wiki or Cargo, appropriately, so that you get this big corpus of additional knowledge. We don't just have a wiki that's just purely text-based, that we're doing text-based searching, but you have all of this additional loaded information that we've been able to automatically, without the user having to do anything, be able to add to it to give them more power to then be able to visualize and see their information. So what I want to show you is if I go to the behavior instance form, and this is where the, my talk is going to take this really swift dive into suddenly mind-blowing semantic form syntax and Lua. So if you've been following, I hope you've all been following, this might hurt a little bit. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, if I can remember. Shift, Command, plus. Shift, there we go. Okay. Can you read this now? One more plus? One more plus? Okay. Plus. Can I get a plus 2? Okay. This is going to hurt a little bit. Okay. So I'm not going to go through all of this syntax because it will hurt greatly. But I am going to go down to right about here, where those 2 lines of code are going to allow us in our form to dynamically add additional form fields. So it's going to actually say, okay, what's the behavior page associated with this behavior instance? And it's going to pass that to a Lua module, a function in a Lua module. And that's going to actually then use cargo to query the behavior page to say, what are the attributes that you support that are of type common attribute? And then it's going to dynamically generate the field statements that will then be returned and will get inserted right there in that place. So there's a couple things to focus on here. This is one of the fun parts here. When you initially create a page, when on that behavior page, when I say add a new behavior instance, it generates, using special form edit, passes some URL parameters into the edit of that page, and it passes in behavior instance associated behavior as a URL parameter. And that's how we set what the behavior is associated with this page. Now, if I come in later on and edit the same page, that URL parameter is not going to be there. And so instead, what I need to do is, in this case, what I've done is sort of tricky. The way I name any behavior instance page is it's behavior colon the number of the behavior page slash then the number of the instance page. So this guy is, or the other one that I was looking at before was, oh, I no longer have it. It was this guy over here. And he is actually behavior instance, he's behavior colon 15 slash 3. So in my form, I use the parser functions, if. I use the URL parameters extension, URL parameters, I think that's what it's called, to do a URL get. So I say if there's a parameter, behavior instance associated behavior, then I'll get its value using URL get. I'll apply the URL decode parser function, which was built into MediaWiki, to convert things like %20 to a space. Okay? That's if the page is just being created. Otherwise, I'll use the MediaWiki magic words namespace and base page name to say it's behavior colon 15 is my behavior instance. I take whatever's returned there, which is now the name of my behavior parent, the name of the behavior instance's parent, and I invoke, using Lua, in the query module, a function called create behavior instance fields. So if I go to module query, and I'm going to have to make him bigger, aren't I? Okay. This is Lua. So Lua is a fabulous little scripting language that allows, when we started using Lua in our wikis, the primary problem we were trying to solve is the fact that templates in MediaWiki mix presentation with data. Okay, so if you're setting cargo fields, if you're setting semantic properties, that's mixed in with the presentation, and all of the logic that you use, like what I just did there with the if and the URL get and the URL decode, all of that is really programming. It's logic. And that logic is being shoved right in there in your template with your presentation. And the problem is that it becomes very, very difficult to read that logic, because if you add any spaces to it to make it more readable, or any new lines to it to make it more readable, those spaces and new lines are going to be rendered when the template is invoked. And so instead, if you can take that logic and pull it out of your template, or in this case, pull it out of your form definition, and put it in a Lua module, you can space it out and make it as readable as you'd like, and you can add comments, And you've pulled out that logic, and you can what's returned from a Lua function is going to be wiki text that then gets placed into your page, and that will then be the presentation of your whatever the result is. So in this case, this function, create behavior instance fields, takes the behavior instance, the parent behavior as a parameter. And this is an example, mw.ext.cargo.query, of in Lua, us doing a cargo query from the pages table to get the page name of all of the attributes. And I told you about that common attributes vocabulary enumeration. So it says so find all of those common attributes, and then walk through frame.args.1, which is the first argument passed into that function, which is the name of the behavior. It's going to do a query for all on that page, on the behavior page, for all of the attributes that are of type common attributes enum. And then once it does that, you'll see it does a series of cargo queries. It does some looping, and the ultimate, what it's generating here then is going to be a field. So this is a string that's then going to be emitted out of the Lua function into your form definition to dynamically create those inherited fields. Multiple cargo queries, lots of stuff being emitted, a little bit mind-blowing, it hurts a little, but it's very, very powerful. And I didn't realize initially that we could even do this, and I just tried it, and it worked. So yay for semantic forms, that it allows you to actually dynamically generate these form definitions. So you don't have to decide a priori what fields you're going to have on your form. You can actually use some Lua to dynamically create a form.
So this is
Microphone? Is there?
I'll just share
Peter, microphone?
So left alone. So I know you've already said this, but this is the first time I've seen Lua in forms like this. It looks like Lua, what that does is it gives you a way to just query the database, like select, it's a database, it's like, database, just a direct database access. So
Yeah,
and it gives you that power right in the wiki, which makes
huge.
oh, yeah,
It's huge.
It's huge.
It's huge. So there are a couple points I want to make about that. So first of all, I'm showing you how I'm doing it here within a form. So I'm sort of showing you like the example on steroids, because not only does it have Lua, not only does it have cargo, it has semantic forms. You can do this in a regular template or in a regular page. You can do it wherever you want. I love cargo. Thank you. I love the fact that you can, you're really down at that database level, and you can, it's very expressive, the ability to query. One of the things that you can query for that I won't show you the page, but there's a place in here where you can add references about any of these items. You can create links to, add a URL, add additional information, and there's a date field. And that date field, when in your template, when you list all of the references, it's sorted by date. Well, an early implementation of this I did actually using Semantic Media Wiki, and I converted the whole thing to cargo. And the problem is that some of those references don't have a date. And when you use in Semantic Media Wiki a field to sort your data, and there's no value, that row gets thrown out. So in our table that showed all of the references, anything that didn't have a date would not appear. When we switched to cargo, it just treats that as another value that happens to be, it's another, you can sort by something that's null. And so we could sort, and it would be in date order with all of the items that didn't have a date, either at the top or the bottom. I don't know where they wind up. But they wind up at either the top or the bottom of in the sorting. So that's extremely powerful. Just the ability to frame all of these queries in cargo is incredibly powerful. And then, now, to be able to do that from Lua, yeah, it's cool.
You can build full applications in your wiki text.
And that's what we do. So to step back again, what we're building for our customers are these collaborative analytics applications. It's the whole package. It's to enhance contribution. So, so NASA's done some fabulous things, and we want to add the Watch Analytics extension. And there's some really neat things that they've done that we want to add. The idea of gamification and badges, all of these things are things that can help contribution. Our approach to this has, in addition, been to make it just stupidly easy for somebody to add content to the wiki. They don't need to know any wiki text. All they need to do is push a button that says add, fill in a form, hit save, and they've added new content to the wiki that's automatically semantically tagged that you can now, as your corpus builds up, slice and dice and visualize and view.
Yeah.
You have the mic?
So my question is this something that's only available when the page actually loads? Is there any way to dynamically create things while you click like form input using Lua, or any way to control contents during the form?
The Lua, you have to invoke the Lua from somewhere. So it has to be in a template or on a page. But then, and then it's rendered. So where would you like to, so you want to have it so it's not actually in a page.
One of the things that might be cool is hiding form fields unless you actually select an option, and maybe
yeah.
different selections make different things appear.
Yeah.
I don't know if this would help with that, or if
Yeah. Yeah, because the form becomes dynamic, so. Now, that's going to be information, so you could query something and say, on a different page has something been selected, and then make that decision as the form is rendered. What you're not going to be able to do, since this is part of the rendering process of the form, you're not going to be able to do something dynamically JavaScript-y, where on that form somebody selects a field and that then dynamically hides, and there's the show on Select stuff does that, but that's after the form has been rendered. All the Lua stuff's done on the server side.
Okay.
And one note about that is we originally went with sort of the default installation of Lua, and I can't remember, there's Lua Sandbox and Lua Standalone, and I never remember which one is which. But we did the default one, and what that does is at the operating system level, it creates a new process every time it's trying to do anything in Lua, every time you've got an invoke, and that's painfully slow. So we then went to the other one, which I think is called Lua Sandbox, and it's much faster. So
Oh, right there.
we have one over here after.
So my question is about your visualization, the graph,
Yeah,
graph
Vicky?
part. Have you ever considered the D3 library?
That's D3. That's
a Wiki,
implemented
yeah,
in D3.
behind I remember we. Yeah, for the Wiki side. So right now you use the graph network. Did you based on
It's a it's a D3
yeah, the
force
force
directed
directed graph, yeah. So based on the exploration we have done so far, I remember, in our semantic results for forms, it's only supported like the tree map and
Yep.
the bar chart. That's the only D3
Yep.
limited
Yeah,
function.
so this is a whole separate extension that you install. And,
Okay.
And if, actually, I can even show you, if I edit this page and try and make it big enough you can actually read it.
Yeah, that's a wiki.
So it introduces a parser function, Vicky, and you pass in one or more pages that are the starting point for your graph. So it's not a semantic result format. It's
Yeah,
its
I
own
realize, yeah.
standalone parser function. Now, you could, we have had where you have a parser, you have an ask query that gives you a list of pages, and then you use that as the input to the Wiki parser function. So that's possible.
Okay. Cool.
But you can't just do it as a semantic result format.
So, very quick, that trick about invoking Lua with cargo, is that also possible with other storage like semantic MediaWiki or Sparkle or whatever?
There is not, that I'm aware of, currently a Lua interface to Semantic MediaWiki. And I actually stumbled across the initial Lua implementation in Cargo, and then I wanted it to be different, and so I wrote other stuff. And I have to say, Yaron is fabulous. I have all these crazy harebrained ideas that I email him about all the time, and he usually lets me put them in his code.
That's just the way he is.
He's wonderfully responsive, yes.
Yeah, so like he arranged a terrific lunch for us that is waiting right now.
Waiting at this very moment.
So Sydney, you really deserve a round of applause for this one.